Welcome to the Crystal River National Wildlife Refuge and the Kings Bay Manatee Refuge. You are among the thousands of yearly visitors privileged to enter our natural springs, home of the Florida manatee. Your awareness of our rules and recommendations is essential to the protection of manatees and their ecosystem. It is your responsibility to learn and understand these rules prior to recreating in the refuge. Between November and April, Kings Bay is home to the largest aggregation of manatees in a natural environment in the world. To protect manatees from harm, harassment, and disturbance, the Crystal River National Wildlife Refuge and manatee sanctuaries were created in parts of Kings Bay. In addition, all of Kings Bay has been designated as a federal manatee protected area, with special manatee protection regulations in place year-round. The Florida manatee is protected by the Marine Mammal Protection Act of 1972, the Federal Endangered Species Act of 1973, and the Florida Manatee Sanctuary Act of 1978. Violations of these statutes may result in fines of up to $100,000 and/or 1 year in jail. The U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service recommends that all visitors practice passive observation when viewing manatees. Passive observation means calmly observing manatees from a distance and from the surface of the water and not initiating any contact with the manatee. In addition to practicing passive observation, visitors should not approach manatees, particularly those found resting. During the winter months, manatees come to the springs to stay warm and spend the majority of their time resting around Kings Bay. Undisturbed access to the springs is critical to the manatee's survival. Resting manatees can be found near the water's surface, partially submerged in the water column or laying on the water bottom. They remain relatively still while resting, but may make some slight movements. For example, manatees may remain almost motionless before moving to the surface to breathe, then returning to the original resting position. This means that resting manatees may be found moving while resting, and it is your responsibility not to disturb them. Recreating close to manatees is a privilege that comes with serious personal responsibility. In the next few minutes, the rules that prevent manatee harassment will be shown, followed by additional recommendations that will improve the quality of your experience. Manatee sanctuaries. Manatee sanctuaries provide a safe area for manatees to rest without disturbance from humans during the cold winter months. Manatee sanctuaries are designated by large orange and white buoys stating closed area. All activities are prohibited inside. Visitors must stay out of all posted manatee sanctuaries and all other posted closed areas. Additional vessel exclusion areas include the King Spring Swim Area, aka the Keyhole, which is closed to all vessels including kayaks, canoes, and paddleboards. Become familiar with the following guidance and use this information when paddling in Kings Bay. By paying attention and following the tips below, paddlers should be able to avoid collisions with manatees and prevent any disturbance to resting manatees. Keep an active watch for manatees and practice safe paddling when in Kings Bay. Because paddlers sit low to the water, paddlers may have difficulty seeing and avoiding collisions with manatees if not careful. Wearing polarized sunglasses will improve your ability to see manatees in the water and should be worn at all times. When paddling, look for manatee signs. These may include a swirl in the surface of the water, observing a snout, part of a back or tail, or hearing a manatee break the surface to breathe. What should you do if you see a manatee? When you see a manatee ahead, stop or slow down to prevent disturbance to the manatee and for your personal safety. Maintain a safe distance from manatees. Do not chase manatees or paddle over manatees, and avoid floating or hovering over them. Use the surface paddling technique while paddling gently when around manatees. This will reduce the disturbance, noise, and splash created by typical paddle strokes. When paddling around spring areas where manatees congregate, your vessel speed should be at its total minimum. This will allow you to react in time to prevent a disturbance. You should watch where you place the paddle on every stroke in case there are manatees rising to breathe or resting at the surface. Always be ready to stop, back up, or steer when in the springs. Mating herds can occur at any time throughout the year. These animals are not aggressive towards humans, but they are quite active and can easily flip a small vessel like a kayak. If you find yourself near a mating herd, the safest thing to do is avoid the group. If the animals approach, remain calm and surface paddle away from the herd. Don't reach from your vessel to touch manatees or try to attract manatees to the side of the vessel. When preparing to anchor, find a safe area to anchor in and always be considerate of other boats and people in the water. Anchor far enough away from no entry area boundaries to prevent your boat from drifting or being blown into these areas by the wind. Never tie up to signs, buoys, and other navigational structures or to trees or vegetation in Kings Bay. When anchoring, slowly lower your anchor. Never throw it into the water. This is for the safety of any manatees and people in the water that might be around your vessel. Dropping an anchor into the water isn't just a hazard, but it can also scare manatees away from your boat. Steps to follow when entering the water from a kayak, canoe, or paddleboard. All swimmers, snorkelers, and divers must stay within 100 feet of a dive flag. Be careful and enter the water slowly to keep from splashing, scaring manatees, and stirring up the bottom. When you stir up the bottom, it's hard to see in the water. Please remember, if you are getting into the water to view, photograph, or video manatees, you must first watch the Manatee Manners video for swimmers or the video for photographers and videographers. If you see an injured manatee or need to report a violation of the Kings Bay Manatee regulations, please call the Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission's Wildlife Alert Hotline at 1-888-404-3922. Thank you for taking the time to review these regulations and guidelines. Please remember that Kings Bay is a community shared by manatees and people, so be respectful of homeowners, businesses, and manatees during your visit. The U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service wants both you and the manatees to have a safe experience. With your help, we can protect this critical manatee area so it can be shared with future generations. For more information about manatee protection within Kings Bay, visit us online at www.fws.gov/Crystal River.